more than enlightenment. I feel like awakening is this, we wake up, we gradually, like scales fall from our eyes, we gradually see more clearly. I appreciate this because my attention too is so preoccupied with what we collectively are doing to our world. I cannot drive it from my mind. My spiritual practice calls me to come to terms with the destruction we humans are causing. I wouldn't want an, quote, enlightenment, unquote, that would keep me from knowing and feeling the ways our actions are unraveling the very web of life. I want to be present to the suffering that comes with, quote, the spirit of the knife and axe, unquote. The spirit of bulldozer and chainsaw, of deep sea drilling and mountaintop removal, of factory farms and genetically modified seeds. There are different ways of responding to this hacking away, and my customary response is one of outrage and opposition. I want to make these actions stop. And in order to stop them, I'm ready to harangue those involved, to shame them and show them how wrong they are, and try to take away their tools and their funding. I don't think to aim for anything more. And indeed, outrage and opposition do save some mountain flowers. How different is Chen's response? Instead of staying riveted on what the woodcutters are doing, her mind turns to what they are missing. The mountain flowers are right there in full view. The blossoms are real and red, glorious to behold. See how the water repeats them in its quivering mirror. Chen returns us to our senses. And that is what she wishes for the woodcutters, to see and feel life around them. Look, right here, on a branch of this tree you're chopping, see the bright flowers. As she snaps them awake from their habitual behavior, the world comes into focus. That's the kind of, quote, stopping, unquote, she aims for. That's the kind of stopping where one comes back to oneself. And oneself is the place where real change can occur. Just take a moment or two, just breathe in Joanna Macy's words before I go off on some other words. Let them touch you. So I want to say for a moment a little bit about how I approach koans. I approach koans kind of as I would approach a dream I might have, where I consider all parts in the koan as aspects or parts of myself to be connected to, looked at in their many facets, found alive both in myself and then also in the world. And another way I work with koans is, well, Norman mentioned this the other day in a meeting I was in. He said, well, you take a koan, you read it, you kind of memorize it or the main points, and you let it cook and be in you for days. And so in preparing for this talk, that's kind of how I approach these koans, both of them, as dreams, but also letting them cook in me. So a lot of the preparation for the talk happened when I brushed my teeth in the evening. Because I have a long ritual and it takes like a while. So, yeah, I'm brushing my teeth, but the various words in the koan might arise for me, and something new comes up. So that's how I approach them, and I'm going to share with you some of what's come during that sort of reflection. The first thing I want to look at in the koan is the woodcutters, the old woodcutters. You know, they're just doing what they're used to doing. what they know how to do. I think of this in myself. I really feel the woodcutters inside. And for me, this is habit energy. You know, we all have habit energy. The more we practice and get maybe quieter a little bit, the more we actually see and might be disturbed by our habit energy. And in particular reference to like environmental things, like I have habits. I use habits of, I order food out, right? And well, it comes in some kind of plastic crap. And so I go, okay, done. Either throw it away or recycle it if I can. I don't necessarily stop purchasing those items because it's a habit and I want my food. You know, for me that's habit energy, but when I look at it in the larger context of what's going on in our lives, it's like, ooh, maybe I need to wake up a little more here. Sometimes I've been able to wake up. We don't buy yogurt in plastic containers anymore. Lori my wife makes yogurt for us. And we store it in a glass jar and we make, you know, so that's a little better. But I could probably give a lot of examples of where my habit energy still, it's just more convenient for me to continue buying something, throw this away, don't be careful. Oh, maybe I want to get somewhere in a hurry, so I'll give it the gas, you know, even though it burns up more stuff, you know, gas, little things like that. So that's one aspect of looking at the woodcutter within. The woodcutters are just this habit energy. Habit energy can also be ways of thinking, like maybe thinking thoughts of despair. You know, oh, it's not going to get better, this world's going to hell, whatever. You know, those are habit thoughts. So it's important to really tend to our habit energy, but not with meanness. You know, Chen isn't speaking of meanness, of making those woodcutters or those parts of myself or outside ourselves wrong or bad. She's wishing for a different way of seeing, as Joanna Macy said really clearly. And this way of seeing, we kind of did it for a moment before we started when I asked you to notice if there was light or sounds or something. It's taking one moment or two or three throughout your day to stop and maybe breathe and notice and feel the vibrant life all around us. And to let that infuse you and hold it so that, like, I have a sense that Chen, when she was thinking of those woodcutters, and I might think of people in the world who are, you know, mining all kind of fossil fuels or stuff like that, but with compassion, you know, so she can see their human lives and our deep interconnection, not in a way to excuse. You know, compassion and trying to really understand where someone else is coming from doesn't mean, or yourself, doesn't mean you agree or even accept, but it changes the relationship. And that's what I'm getting from Chen, is by how she's able to continue to be enlivened by what she sees in the natural world and in each other. Her awakening has been to see our deep interconnections, even those that maybe we'd like to X out. I'd like to X out some of the habit energies of myself, just X it out. It doesn't work. Or I'd like to X out certain corporations or policies, but that's a trap, right? You get into us, them, and you don't see our interconnections. So I think she's saying, Chen, in seeing the mountain flowers reflected in the water, glorious red, that we have to pay attention and let this aliveness of the world infuse how we meet other people, difficult situations in the environment, and how we meet our own habit energy. So I offer that kind of practice to you as a way of carrying forth over these next months as we study this. There's another aspect, too, of these woodcutters, though, that I think is really important that's come up to me in my mind, is that, you know, that woodcutters were probably pretty poor. Probably didn't have much money, not a lot of resources, not a lot of access to other fuels or other ways of cooking, other ways of being. And I think of, and yet it's easy to blame them, right? So I think of, you know, in our lives now, like I can afford to shop at Whole Foods, whole paycheck, or at Oliver's. I can buy organic produce, but there are a lot of people in this county and around the country and world who don't have access to these. They have to buy the genetically modified stuff or whatever's the cheapest deal they can get because the paycheck's not very big or whatever. And I think it's important to realize that they're us too. We're not separate from them. And so any actions we might take in terms of helping our environment need to be in a sense of relationship to all people in all situations, and to see how the economics interbe, and how my choices interbe with all of that. It's important. Like even, you know, I have a hybrid plug-in car, but I know it's got a lithium battery. And I know that that lithium is mined in places where right now it's not really great for the environment there. So, what am I going to do about how does this impact my practice? How do I respond and hold those persons, those places in my heart, maybe make some different choices going forward? These are open questions. I don't know the answer, but I just know it's the practice. Well, so I want to go on to this next koan that I think illuminates and gives us a little more help as we confront these issues that we'll be confronting throughout the rest of these next couple months. And this one, I'm only going to read you the story, not the commentary, because I'll do the commentary. And this one is called Ohashi Awakens in a Brothel. Now, it's not specifically about climate change or the environment or anything like that, but I'm going to apply it that way. It's from Japan, 18th century. Ohashi sold herself to a brothel to support her impoverished family after her samurai father lost his position. She served diligently and became a poet and calligrapher, but she was plagued by sadness for her former life. Later, she met Koan, who was a great, great teacher, who advised her that enlightenment was possible in any circumstance. He gave her the koan, who is it that does this work? Ohashi was terrified of lightning. One day, during a violent thunderstorm, she sat zazen on the veranda of the brothel in order to face her fear. A bolt of lightning struck the ground in front of her. She fainted. And when she awoke, she saw the world in an entirely new way. Koan later certified her enlightenment. Ohashi was eventually ransomed from the brothel by one of her patrons, Iso, and they were married. Later, with Iso's permission, she became a nun and was renowned for her wisdom and compassion. After Ohashi's death, instead of making the customary memorial tablet, Iso had a statue of Koan, or Kuan Yin, carved in Ohashi's likeness and donated it to Koan's temple. So that's the story. So I want to go back to the beginning and think about Ohashi. And she had to, trying to look at my notes. I make notes. I can't read them. Well, I'll hope that in the making I'll remember everything I thought about. So Ohashi, I guess, her family was poor, and she had to take some great courage and to go and make a living in a brothel. Now, and she did well. I guess the brothels included you could learn calligraphy and do stuff, and so you could also be cultured and all that there. So that's kind of nice. But it's still a brothel, right? And so even despite getting culture, becoming a poet, she felt this nagging sadness. And I can relate to that. When I was a little girl, I just thought the world was going to be great and lovely all the time because, you have an innocence as a child. But there's a point in time, or maybe several points, where you wake up and you kind of realize, wait, what? Some bad things are happening that aren't quite right. It's almost as if we're in the middle of the brothel. It isn't the way I thought it was as a child in my innocence. And even though I've had a very good life and things happen that are good, I get to travel, this and that, there's a sadness. Maybe can you all relate to that at all? A sense of a sadness still, or a loss of maybe innocence, and pain. To me, that's what I can touch here. And sadness for the former days when I thought everything was going to be fine and there was no climate change. I wasn't going to worry about anything. And damn, now it's like this. What the heck? I really relate to that. But so Koan comes in and says enlightenment or awakening is possible in any circumstance, which means right here, this moment, or in anything we encounter, however good, bad, horrible, fabulous, awakening is possible. And what is this awakening? I mean, I don't know, but I think of it as seeing just right in this present moment, being really present, or maybe like I think of it as scales falling from my eyes. And I had an experience of this recently, in the last couple of years with kind of the Black Lives Matter things. And as we started learning, or I started understanding more regarding the experience of Black persons and people of color, all colors, so different from anything I experienced, and I never thought about it. And then suddenly some people have told me their experiences, and it's like scales dropping from my eyes. I have a whole different sense of compassion and connection, and even understanding, like, for why somebody might be so pissed off that given an opportunity they would loot and vandalize. I used to think, what's up with this? But I kind of understand this anger. And not that I condone it, but understand with my whole heart. And that's kind of this awakening. We awaken in every moment to our deep interconnections. And I think that's what started to happen here with Ohashi. And it's really important as we deal with like climate change and how come to decisions about, well, how will I demonstrate or speak up about what's happening in the environment? Can I do it in a way that doesn't X out the other or get me locked in a place of where I think I'm good and they're bad? That's so easy, it's like, that's probably my habit energy go-to, is to do that, but it doesn't work. And this koan that Koan has given to Ohashi really helps. Who is it that does this work? Who is it? Is it me, like Marianne, my little ego, going out and standing righteously on a street corner? I mean, that's a good thing to do, but how do I think about it? How do I conceive it in here? How do I connect with people who come by? Who is it who does this work? Who doesn't give up, who just takes one step? And I don't have a good answer for this. This is a koan question that I'm living with now and will continue, and I offer it to you to live with this question, who is it who does this work, as you go about your day and days and grapple with whatever the news is in terms of the environment or any issue that you're grappling with. Who is it who does this work? As I was brushing my teeth, I did have sort of a sense, oh, it's Buddha. It's Buddha. And that might sound weird, but in Zen, we kind of think that we don't just like have Buddha nature somewhere, I got to uncover it or something. We are Buddha nature. That is the truth of our reality, of deep reality, deep interconnection. And so it helps me to think, oh, yes, it's Buddha. It's my letting go into that deep reality that does this work and transforms. It's like letting go into the flowers, letting go into it. And the rest of the koan, well, things went better. I think because her heart, Ohashi's heart was open. She was able to connect and be connected with, and be compassionate even probably with people who did things she didn't care for. So, just a couple more words. That's all I want to say on that koan, and I'm trying to see, oh good, our time is good. So there's kind of these 3 points. This awakened seeing, or who is it who does this work? This awakened seeing, taking in the good, that's important to do every day. Really take in what's alive and feeds you to help you move forward, as you walk in your life. Which is kind of awakening to the to possibilities in any circumstance. And who is it that does this work? That's a really important question to hold. And how do the scales fall from your eyes, here and there? It's a gift if an ounce of scale falls off sometimes. So I think that's all I wanted to say, but I forgot something. So we're going to do it backwards. Just a moment. Get myself put back together here. I forgot to do the before lecture chant. So we're just going to do it even though I'm mostly finished. So it's an unsurpassed, penetrating, and perfect Dharma is rarely met with, even in